So we're on section of your biology book, section 9.4. This is the last section of chapter 9. And we're going to be talking about a healthy gastrointestinal tract, healthy GI tract. So how do we keep healthy? How do we keep our digestive tract healthy and efficient? First of all, it's having a balanced diet. We know that we need to eat the right kinds of food and the proper food and the balance of all different food groups. And we also need to know that we need to chew our food well. Chewing our food well helps digestion. And we need to drink enough fluids. We can't get dehydrated. A big thing to remember is that we have dietary fiber. And dietary fiber, as we found out before, is that indigestible like cellulose or from plants and such, or nuts. And this fiber scours, it's like the scouring pad of our colon, of our digestive tract. And it basically scours the toxic wastes and product and dead cells from the walls. And so it comes out, basically we don't digest it, but it comes out that we basically are able to get rid of a lot of our waste products easier if we have a lot of dietary fiber, like eating oatmeal in the morning, or eating whole wheat bread. That's good dietary fiber. Another thing that helps our gastrointestinal tract and helps us to keep healthy is to get exercise. So the more you exercise, the more your digestive tract reacts and is able to digest food as you go. It helps digestion by exercise. Pretty amazing. So now we're going to talk about some of the disorders and things that can go wrong with our GI tract, our indigestion, our digestive tract. The first one they go over is food poisoning. And food poisoning, what happens when you think you have food poisoning? Well, you get sick usually right away. Sometimes though it can take up to 12 hours, 2 to 12 hours after eating. Food poisoning can react. Well, most people get sick within the first couple hours, and they have nausea and vomiting and diarrhea and weakness all of a sudden, like they have a drastic flu. Most of food poisoning is caused by the Staphylococcus aureus, so staph, which grows in foods like pre-cooked hams, milk, custards, cream fillings, and chicken and salads and things like that. So staph can actually get into these, and then we eat them, and then we can get drastically sick with this bacteria. To know for sure if it's food poisoning, sometimes you need to find this out because of your intestinal distress, but usually it's pretty violent and it happens after we eat someplace and you think, need to go back to that place and say, okay, I got sick. I would. But anyway, on to the next is botulism. We talked about botulism earlier. It's very severe. It's caused by this Clostridium botulinum. And what this is a bacteria that is anaerobic. So basically, it's when somebody's canning something, and they put it in a jar with no oxygen, but it flourishes in there. And so in canned goods, this neurotoxin that's inside of here can actually be very deadly. It's the deadliest neurotoxin known. Actually, the deadliest poison known would be, and you can get it from very small amounts. So if you want to know what the most deadly poison is, it's going to be botulism. It's going to be that Staph aureus there, that bacteria. And a lot of times these cans, another thing it says in here, these people are canning. It's when people are canning on their own. They're canning different food, vegetables, or whatever from their garden, canning, and they find out maybe the can, looks like, or our can looks like it has a leak in it or a bulge in it. Don't eat it. Throw it away. So, because this deadly bacteria is 1 million times more deadly than strychnine poison. So it's, like I said, the most poisonous thing you can imagine. One string bean can kill you. You eat just a bite of the string bean and you could die. And so a way to know, say you have canned goods, is to boil your canned goods, like 10 minutes of boiling before you eat, after you have the canned goods. Because these endospores can withstand boiling, putting it into the can and live in the can. But if you take the can and you boil it, just like you have to do with water, if you're boiling water that you want to drink and you think it might be contaminated, I would boil it for about 20 minutes. So anyway, salmonellosis is a common food infection from salmonella. And a lot of people have got that. Even my grandson Hudson caught salmonella poisoning. And how did he get it? It was from like meat, fish, poultry, or shellfish. But actually, how Hudson got it was from, he had on his hands, he was touching snails, because snails have a lot of salmonella, and not washing your hands from touching snails can be very deadly if that snail is holding that bacteria, salmonella, and giving it to you. So you can get it from all these different ways, you know, from all these different products, I should say, poultry, eggs, dairy products, shellfish, anything like that. But one thing that a lot of people get salmonella is by, they have their kitchen counter and they're putting their meat on the kitchen counter or on their board, you know, on their cutting board, and they're putting the meat on there and they don't wash the kitchen counter or they don't wash the cutting board. And therefore it's very important, you know, that you wash that, because salmonella can be on it and you can get drastically sick. And well, more serious, it says more serious than salmonella is typhoid fever. And typhoid fever actually is called salmonella typhoid, but it's a type of salmonella. It's very rare in the United States, but if you're traveling into different countries, they definitely could get typhoid fever. And it's from contaminated food or water. And this type of salmonella spreads into your entire body. So if you're traveling, to make sure, and especially if they've had like flooding and all these different things, the water can get contaminated and you can get typhoid fever pretty easily. Dyspepsia. Let's talk about dyspepsia. Is a total different thing. It's gastric indigestion. It's when you have heartburn really bad. And this heartburn can even lead to like nausea and vomiting and belching. You keep burping and belching and stuff. That's dyspepsia. What causes this? Well, it can be a disease of other organs. Like you can have problems with your hiatal hernia in the area of where your esophagus comes into your stomach, that area there, and that valve, that cardiac valve there. You can have a problem there in that valve, causing you to have dyspepsia. Or else you can just be drinking too much food or eating too much food and just have, before you go to bed, eating the wrong kinds of food that can cause you to belch, you know, and maybe even sodas, that kind of stuff can cause that problem. Or else you're eating a lot of fatty foods. So that's why they say when you have dyspepsia, gastric indigestion, they tell you to lessen the fatty foods and don't eat right before you go to bed, because a lot of people have it when they're sleeping, they wake up with this gastric indigestion. So on to ulcers. So what is an ulcer? It's an open sore in the mucous membrane. And so these open sores are called gastric ulcers. Now they also have open sores in your duodenal, in your intestines, the upper part of your intestines. And they call these duodenal ulcers. And they're just practically as bad. When I was a kid, I had a duodenal ulcer. When I was young, I got ulcers. I got a duodenal ulcer, and they would just give me milk all the time. And they thought it was just from the hydrochloric acid that my stomach was so acidy that it was eating a hole in going into my intestines. So, which they found later on that a lot of these ulcers are not necessarily just caused by gastric juices, but they're also caused by bacteria. And so back then they never gave me antibiotics. But now when you have an ulcer, if anybody has an ulcer, they'll start with antibiotics. Gastric ulcer can become very critical if it starts to bleed. Here's an ulcer here, close up of the ulcer. If it starts to bleed really bad, it can cause you to lose a lot of blood and to rush you. Whenever you have a bleed like that, you have to be rushed to the hospital so they can stop that bleeding, especially if it's a big ulcer. So here's these bacteria that are causing it. Here's the ulcer, here's the close-up of the bacteria. Like I said, when I was a little girl, they never knew they were bacteria. They never gave me antibiotics. It took so long time for my ulcer to get, they just kept feeding me milk, which probably I was allergic to milk, I don't know. Milk wasn't working very well. So those are what's called peptic, means stomach ulcer. They also have duodenal ulcers. So let's see what else, there's a couple more things here. Let's go on to the next page. Hard time with this thing here now. Come on. Oh dear, I lost the last page. Let's go back to history. Sorry. Let's go back to the history there. See if we can get that last page there. Sorry. So, a few other things here we're going to talk about. Let me go to my notes here before this is coming up. Alcohol. So alcohol is very irritating to the mucous membranes of the gastrointestinal tract. So alcoholics can have get diarrhea, or even when someone's drinking too much alcohol. They don't even have to be alcoholic. You can have diarrhea, nausea, vomiting. You're vomiting up all of this alcohol when you're drinking, if they're drinking too much. And it also interferes with the absorption of central nutrients, like absorption of the B vitamins and the C vitamins. They don't absorb very well. And then another problem, these are two problems, and I kind of went over these before, but let's kind of look into them. You know about these. You have constipation. And constipation is when the feces is very dry and you have difficult removing the feces as you defecate, as you're trying to get rid of it through, when you go to the bathroom. And constipation sometimes is because a person has low fiber in their diet, they don't have enough fiber, or they have insufficient liquids, or insufficient exercise, stress, and disease can all cause constipation. So I don't know why this other is not coming up right now. So, okay, let's go on. I think it's coming up here, so. All right, let's go down to chapter 10 here. Okay. All right. I want to go to the, okay, see if we can go back here. Okay. So, sorry, it's kind of confusing here. There's a couple other things. We want to talk about colon cancer and a few other things here. So this is the picture here. There you go. So, I didn't talk about diarrhea. Basically, diarrhea, you know what diarrhea is? It's the rapid removal of feces. You have to go to the bathroom right away. And not insufficient water has been removed, so it's very watery, and you have to go quite often, frequent defecation. And it's caused a lot of times by bacteria and viruses and various chemicals. Different chemicals and different medications could cause you to have diarrhea. It also can be diarrhea can be caused by stress and cramping and such. There's diarrhea there. Cramping. Symptoms are cramping, pain in your stomach, pain in your abdomen, weakness, and sometimes vomiting. So this next here I'm talking about is dysentery. Before we get on to colon cancer, dysentery is a very painful infection of the colon, and it's caused by bacteria or protozoa and viruses, and you get severe diarrhea and cramps and blood in your feces. And it's mainly due to poor sanitation, often in the drinking water. The drinking water has been polluted by sewage in some way. Maybe a flood or something has put the sewage into the drinking water, and then it causes areas to have dysentery. They don't have it too much in America, but in a lot of the countries, in third world countries, they do. Also, dysentery can, if you're traveling and you're eating fruit that hasn't been washed, if you don't wash the fruit, it can have the bacteria on the fruit, and you can end up getting dysentery. Even if you're washing your hands and you didn't wash your hands and you touch your mouth, you can get it just by barrel or brushing your teeth. Those kind of things can give you dysentery. So it's pretty severe. And the last but not least is colon cancer. Here's a picture of the cancer cell, and this is a pretty neat picture of the cancerous region here of the colon. Colon cancer is like curable, like 95% curable, but the problem is it's kind of difficult to diagnose sometimes. And so a lot of people don't go and get checked for colon cancer, and they end up, after the cancer spread, and they can die from colon cancer, which happened to my mom. She actually had colon cancer, and then it was treated. Actually, it took 6 years before she died, because they treated it, but the colon cancer metastasized to her liver and onto her bones, which was the last of it, you know. Anyway, so most people that have colon cancer are over 40 years old, and many of them have had a diet high in fats and low in fiber. So if you keep your diet with high fiber in it, and you're eating a lot of fiber, you're less likely to have colon cancer. High fiber is like in whole grains, raw fruits like that apple we saw at the beginning, and vegetables and fruits and seeds and nuts that you put, so you will not get colon cancer. So are you less likely to get colon cancer, I should say. Okay, now we've actually finished this section. You can go over the section review if you like. So it was an amazing section, and we're going to go on to the circulatory system and blood. Okay. Amazing how God's put us all together.